Welcome back to another edition of Arizona Wildcats Insiders Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Hutchison. Arizona has officially wrapped up its bye week as the team starts to prepare for Colorado this week with a Saturday game at 4 p.m. kickoff time here in Tucson on FS1. Now, Arizona's coming off of back-to-back losses against BYU and Houston. A combined 9 points separates Arizona from being 6-1. Instead, they are 4-3. In that game against BYU, the Wildcats found themselves leading 24-14 in the fourth quarter, but let it slip away and saw the games end in double overtime with BYU winning 33-27. Then you fast forward to the following week against Houston, a team that was able to dominate the line of scrimmage, run the football at will, right up the gut with their quarterback, Wigman, who had 98 yards rushing, and Dean Connors, who had 100 yards rushing. In all, Houston rushed for 232 yards on the ground, just gashing Arizona's defense. The Wildcats found themselves trailing 28-14 at the start of the fourth quarter, but battled their way back. To their credit and to Brennan's credit as a head coach, they battled back, made it 28-all, but unfortunately they just left way too much time on the clock for the Houston Cougars, who did what they did in terms of running the ball and bleeding the clock. They did that. Defense was Swiss cheese, and Wigman and Connors made all the right moves, bled the clock down to the final seconds. There's a penalty that was picked up for illegal motion. So Houston hangs on to be in good, solid field goal position, and Sanchez hits the game-winning 41-yard field goal as time expires. Now, however, BYU is 8-0. Houston is 7-1. BYU just came off of an impressive win, 41-27, over Iowa State, who's a very good football team, on the road too, I might add. And then ASU and Houston squared off in Tempe, and the Houston Cougars jumped out to a 24-0 lead, absolutely dominating the Sun Devils in every aspect of the game before ASU kind of made it close in the fourth quarter. They battled back, but at the end of the day, it was 24-16. And to be honest, it really wasn't even that close, given how far ahead Houston was. So the two teams are a combined 15-1 that Arizona lost to. That's not bad, guys. Everybody's talking about how much better ASU is. They got their butts whooped by Houston. Yes, they made it close, but overall, that game was a butt whooping. Arizona battled back and almost won that game. BYU, what they did to Iowa State, that's a good Iowa State team that they just dismantled in the second half. Arizona was winning the game against BYU and saw the game get tied in the last 19 seconds of the game after two questionable pass interference calls on the defense. So the point is they're fine. They're moving in the right direction. It's not pretty. It's not great, but it's better than the 4-8 they were a year before, and they're moving in the right direction. They're going to make a bowl game. I think they're going to go 7-5. They're sitting at 4-3, and I think they're in a good spot to make a bowl game this season. Now, with the bye week, we had a chance to go over our all-quarter century teams, breaking down quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, offensive line, tight ends, defensive line, linebackers, secondary players, you name it. We broke it all down, punters, kickers, and we've had a really enjoyable time doing this and taking a look back in an era that is really interesting of Arizona football. Yes, it's a below 500 era. Yes, there are large chunks of it where Arizona was not good, but seeing the slow rebuild of Arizona from the Mike Stoops era and the fun that came with that, and seeing Arizona get to one game away from going to a Rose Bowl, that was tremendous. And then Rich Rodriguez having a consistent 7-win program, getting to a Fiesta Bowl, and really putting Arizona back on the map in terms of a symbol of consistency. That was fun to watch. And then Jed Fish and what he was able to do in 3 seasons for the Cats. Now, we broke down the top 3 coaches over the last quarter century of Arizona football. And I think it's pretty clear. The first one on our list at number 3 is Coach Mike Stoops, who I feel gets so much unnecessary hate, doesn't get the respect that he deserves for what he was able to do at Arizona. And given during that time, you're coming off the John Malkovich era where, let's be honest, the program was at its lowest point up to that point. I mean, it was horrid. You had players not rioting, but players up in arms and protesting their head coach, and you don't see that in college football, but that's what went on at Arizona. Mike Stoops takes it over, and yes, it was a slow start. I think 2-10, 3-8, 3-8, but by year 3, by the third season, Arizona goes 6-6. Then they go 5-7, have a little bit of a down year compared to the last year, and then boom, 7-5 bowl game for the first time in 10 years. Boom, 8-4, one game away from going to the Rose Bowl. One of the best Arizona teams that I've ever seen. Obviously, it doesn't stack up to 98 or 93, but for my young self in my 30 years of life, it's one of the better Arizona teams Arizona's had. They come up short to go to the Rose Bowl. Then another solid season. Started off 7-1, and we're ranked number 9 in the country. Didn't win another game the rest of the year, and that kind of set the tone to the end of the Mike Stoops era. But Mike Stoops' 41-50 record doesn't show how well he did. In November, there was no tougher team in the Pac-12, Pac-10 that you didn't want to face on the road in terms of an underdog. They had upset wins over UCLA, ASU. No, they didn't get you. Well, they got USC later in his career. Oregon, Cal, that memorable game. I mean, they were just pulling off upsets left and right. And then the game against Iowa in 2010, they knew how to be and play in tough games and situations where the odds are stacked against you. I mean, you look at what he was able to do against USC. Yes, he got the one win in 2009 that everybody remembers and loves. But 2008, 2007, that was a very good USC team. And Arizona was, again, finished 5-7. They lost 2013. Not bad. Then the following year, 2008, that USC team was number 5 in the country. Mark Sanchez, that whole entire offense, they were one of the best teams in the country and one of the best offenses in the country. Arizona loses 17-10. I mean, you're talking about really close games. You're talking about games that went down to the wire, and they were battling. So Mike Stoops, for what he was able to do with crap facilities, getting top-notch recruiting classes, developing those guys, putting them in the NFL, and getting Arizona back on the map, he is number 3 on our list. Number 2, it was a short time, and a lot of Arizona fans hate him, and I get it for how everything fell apart there after his final season. But number 2 is Jedd Fisch. You come in after the Kevin Sumlin era. The program is at its worst state it's ever been. I think it's worse than the John Malkovich era because you had absolutely zero talent on that team. Zero. Jordan Morgan, yes, I get it. He made the NFL, and Jedd did a great job, but Jordan Morgan was not an NFL player when Jedd Fisch got there. Michael Wiley was not an NFL player before Jedd Fisch got there, and the rest of the roster was pretty bad. In his first year, they went 1-11 with an embarrassing loss, 21-19 to NAU. It's the worst loss, the worst loss in program history. And that's because of the horrible job Kevin Sumlin and his staff did the year prior. So they go 1-11, went over Cal, who had half their team missing due to COVID restrictions. Then you fast forward to the following year, they get in the transfer portal, add from the recruiting class, staff gets things going. Arizona's 5-7 and really should have made a bowl game that season, but a very good turnaround then. And then in his final year, Noah Fafita taking over for Jaden Delore, winning 7 straight games, beating a handful of ranked teams, dominating the opponents, beating Oklahoma in the Alamo Bowl to secure the 38-24 win and lock in Arizona's 10th win of the season, going 10-3. It is one of the most impressive coaching jobs in college football I've ever seen. Yes, I know Arizona fans don't like Jedd Fisch, but Arizona was at the bottom of the barrel in the country. They're there with UMass. They're there with New Mexico. They're there with Kansas at that time. They're one of the worst Syracuse. They're one of the worst football teams in the country at that time. And in 3 years, with the stuff you have to compete against USC, Washington, Oregon, Utah, UCLA, boom. Arizona's not only in a bowl game, they go 10-3. Their 4th 10-win season as a program. Highly impressive coaching job. And then lastly, to me, the symbol of consistency over the last 25 years in the desert with Arizona football, Rich Rodriguez. You're talking about a guy that took over a solid program. Again, they had a down year of Mike Stoops, but there was talent on the roster. He was able to, and he had Kadeem Carey and Matt Scott. That was a dynamic duo. Austin Hill. There was talent. Able to go 7-5 his first year, 7-5 the second year. Year 3, you go 10-2. You end up in the Fiesta Bowl, lose that game in the heartbreaker, and then it's 7-5. Miss a bowl game going 3 and whatever, and then 7-5. Arizona was a consistent winner underneath Rich Rodriguez. He knew how to scheme and get the most out of the talent he had on the roster. Wasn't a very good recruiter. Had the facilities to be a good recruiter. Didn't have very good defenses, but got the most out of his players and gave us memorable moments like the win over ASU for the Pac-12 South title, the wins over Oregon. The first one with BJ Denker, where they just smacked the hell out of the Ducks, thanks to Kadeem Carey's nearly 50 rushing attempts that game. The game against Oregon on the road, Autzen Stadium, Scooby Snack against number 2 Ducks. Memorable. Heck, Rich Rod's second game of his career, upsetting Oklahoma State in Tucson. Just upset after upset, big game after big game, always in it, always battling back. Rich Rodriguez is our top coach of the last 25 years in U of A football history. Be sure to follow us for more at Arizona Wildcats on SI, or follow me, Troy Hutchison, at THutch1995, and we'll see you next time.